be the most entertaining president the world has ever seen. And he could possibly be the most racist president the world has ever seen, also. But, but, he has a lot of support. He is gaining a lot more support, especially since that President Biden is fumbling the United States. Let's talk about it. President Trump. The Supreme Court agrees to weigh whether Trump can be kicked off the ballot in Colorado. This is some big news. And we're going to find out what's going on. We're about to find out what's going on. I'm not really the biggest politic type of guy, but you know, whenever politics come up, it seems to always draw arguments. It always seems to be one-sided, or you know, you can never agree on something. Politics is annoying, respectfully. Politics is very annoying. And it's hard to choose a side sometimes because, you know, some days are good for presidents and some days are terrible. But let's get into it.
Some breaking news just into us right now in the last couple of minutes. The Supreme Court is agreeing to weigh whether former President Donald Trump can be kicked off the ballot in Colorado, as the Colorado Supreme Court has ruled. And as you know, that ruling from the Colorado Supreme Court was put on hold while this was appealed all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Danny Savalos is joining us now to give us the breakdown. Danny, I understand that they're going to hear it on February 8th, which is the same day as the Nevada caucus.
Yes, exactly. And the issue here is that even though the Supreme Court may be taking up this Colorado case, they may decide a universal issue, such as whether or not Donald Trump is an officer within the meaning of Section 3, which was a big issue in Colorado. But all these other states, it doesn't necessarily dispose of those other states unless and until, arguably, those states have a petition before the court. So this may end up being a piecemeal process if the only case the court is hearing is the one in Colorado.
So February 8th.
Okay, now, Danny, I'm just reading through
February
this
8th.
On my laptop.
February 8th, Donald Trump is going to be in court. He's going to be fighting and pleading his case against why he should be on the Colorado battle, the Colorado ballot. And yeah, this is probably not going to be the only time he has to fight against this, because it seems like every other state now and then is trying to come up and say and stir up some drama. It's seeming like it. And I'm wondering if this is fair stuff or if Trump is really like a bad person, because from the last time I checked, Biden took some stuff from the White House too. Biden said some reckless stuff too. I know this is more about January 6th, but you know, we got to look at it both sides. Both parties is weirdos. Both parties got a bunch of weirdos doing a bunch of weird stuff, and we got to talk about it. But let's continue.
Top as we talk here, we've got the Maine challenge as well, which is the most immediate other challenge that's gone all the way to the Maine Secretary of State.
Exactly right. And look at this is a great example of how different these cases are, even though they seem so similar. In Colorado, the two major issues was Donald Trump an insurrectionist, and was he an officer within the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? Similar issues in Maine. But in Maine, they went through the administrative process, through the Secretary of State. In Colorado, they went through the courts. What a huge difference. And actually, legally, they could have gone through the Secretary of State in Colorado. And now in Maine, it may go through the courts. But what if, for example, a court determines that this is what's called a non-justiciable question, something the courts can't hear at all. Then you have a situation where Colorado, that decision may be null and void, and meanwhile, the administratively decided one in Maine could be legitimate. The point is, this is becoming very quickly a patchwork quilt of different decisions on the issue of whether Donald Trump can remain on the ballot.
And importantly,
this is one thing about politics that I don't understand, right? Both sides got people in high places. So either way, it's going to be a pulling and a tug and pull type of thing, because if half of the people in the Senate, in the Supreme Court are Republicans and the other half is Democrats, how are we going to come to a conclusion? Especially if the Republicans like their person and the Democrats like their person. How are we gonna come to a resolution if everybody's fighting against everybody? But what I like to see in the future is, both parties coming together and bringing the right information to the people, bringing the right resources to the people, and actually making some moves that the people agree with. Not just particular people, obviously, but generally the entire population. If the entire population could get on the same page, man, we would be a better place. So I'll be honest with you. We'd be in a much, much better place. But, that's politics for you. It's one side or the other side. And choose wisely.
the Colorado decision is based on the 14th Amendment. The Colorado Supreme Court ruled in contrary to what the appeals court in Colorado had already said. The Colorado Supreme Court said, sorry, the 14th Amendment does not allow somebody who engaged in an insurrection to actually be on the ballot for president. It seems to me one challenge, according to many legal scholars, is he's not been convicted of being involved in an insurrection.
That is the weakest argument, in my opinion, for the Trump team, because when you look at the language of the Constitution, which often suffers from being a little too general and a little too vague and written in old-fashioned language, but when you look at the language of the 14th Amendment, it doesn't anywhere require a conviction for insurrection. And I think most leading scholars would agree. I think there's almost universal agreement on this, except for maybe on the Trump side, that you don't need to be convicted of insurrection. That insurrection determination is kind of left open. So I to be a conviction, but what it has to be, how it's determined, that part is a little unclear.
And I'm also noting here that now there's talk in Texas of a retaliatory move from the lieutenant governor of kicking Biden off of the ballot in Texas.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and that, of course, is always the risk with...
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? It's either one side or the other side. You can't, there's no in the middle. Now that they doing this to Trump, the Republicans is going to come straight back and do it to Biden. It's just common sense. It's just common sense. And then they're going to make up some crazy story that Biden did that should get him kicked off the ballot. And it just don't make sense. Why don't y'all just let him rock? Obviously, if they doing some wild stuff, like yes, Trump tweeting, man, y'all should raid the Capitol building. Yes, Trump tweeting that was out of pocket. But I don't think Trump, at the end of the day, I don't think he really thought that people was about to raid this. I don't think so, but because of that, now we're here. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen in the next couple months, especially with this ballot stuff. It's the first time in my lifetime, at least as a grown adult, seeing this type of nonsense going on with the presidential candidates. It just doesn't make sense. It don't make sense. This is not politics. This is entertainment at its finest. Let's continue.
These kinds of political judicial maneuvers is that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And it should be no surprise that Republicans will start trying to do the same thing. But they're not going to have as easy a path, because there is the insurrection clause in the Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. You have a pretty good set of facts when you look at January 6th.
Real quickly, is this a quick turnaround in terms of what we expect from the Supreme Court? Do you expect a decision quickly? And are you surprised that they've come out and said they will take the case as quickly as they did?
I'm not surprised that they're taking it. It was a near certainty that they would take it, and not surprised that they did so quickly. We're often asked, legal analysts like me, how soon, what's the timeline? And for most of these cases, we have only our own cases of people involving people that no one's ever heard of. And so the timelines we're used to are weeks and months. But when it is such a critical constitutional issue like this, it really isn't a surprise that the Supreme Court would stop what they're doing and focus on a decision like this with such monumental, earth-shattering implications. It's no surprise they move at breakneck speed for these cases. But for your
imagine all of this happening, right? All of this happening, and you still end up seeing President Trump or Donald Trump win. Imagine all of this. Like, the people would be on his side. The people are going to be partying. They are going to throw a huge party. This party is going to be big, and everybody's going to hear about it. That MAGA party is going to be next level. That's somebody might want to pull up to that. I'm just saying. Not me, but somebody might want to pull up to that. This is crazy, though. Imagine him still winning after everything they are throwing at him. They're throwing every arsenal in the book to make sure he can't become president again. And is it fair play, or is it politics? We'll see.
Run-of-the-mill case involving some guy you've never heard of, don't expect this kind of treatment.
All right, Danny, thank you very much. Let's quickly go now to NBC's Vaughn Hilliard, who's on the campaign trail. He's in Iowa, where President Trump is campaigning this evening. And I guess, Vaughn, it's too early to have any sort of immediate reaction from the crowd behind you, but it's pretty clear what the Trump campaign has felt about the Colorado and the Maine decisions to take him off the ballot.
Exactly, Tom, and all this is running perpendicular to the political. The day of those oral arguments on February 8th is the day of the Nevada caucus. Of course, it's the Iowa caucus, the New Hampshire primary, and then the Nevada caucus. And this here, the timeline that the Supreme Court is working on allows them to make a ruling potentially early enough, if they were to affirm the Colorado Supreme Court's decision disqualifying him from a ballot, that would still leave the great share of the Republican electorate around the country to select a different candidate for president of the United States. Just 2 weeks after that is the South Carolina primary. Obviously, the stakes of this are high. I'll let our legal team get into the specifics. But Donald Trump is landing, as we speak right now, into Iowa for 2 days of campaign rallies. We are in rural Sioux Center, Iowa. Of course, we're going to talk to the campaign team. You could very well expect Donald Trump to take this head on when he gets on stage. Donald Trump, to be clear, a great many legal experts expect the Supreme Court to leave him on the ballot. Donald Trump is concerned about this decision in front of the Supreme Court. His own attorney, Alina Habba, said just that 2 days ago.
That's interesting. That is interesting. You would think that Donald Trump is not really concerned about the arrows that he's getting shot with, but that's interesting. He's actually concerned. He actually feels like this might affect his president's candidacy, which is news to me. I thought that President Trump was or Donald Trump, I thought he was a tough guy. He can take anything. He can do whatever he wants. He can get away with anything. but it's looking like he's actually not. He's got a little bit of fear in him. But I think if they didn't throw any of this stuff at him and they just went at it 1v1, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, I think we know who's going to win that. I think we know who's winning that.
And suggesting his fear is based on the own Supreme Court justices that he nominated and that were appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, 3 of them during his 4 years in office, Tom. And he fears that, in the words of Alina Habba, his attorney, that they could try to appear neutral by ruling against him. It was just 1 year ago, in fact, he put out on a social media post that the Supreme Court always rules against him. Of course, that's not always the case, but on that particular ruling in 2022, they forced him to turn over his tax returns to a congressional House committee that subpoenaed them. So for Donald Trump, there's a lot at stake. The future of his presidential campaign is at stake, and we're just about 10 days away from the Iowa caucus right now. And of course, voters say that they're going to stick with him no matter what, but it's hard to ignore the fact that the Supreme Court is going to be making the determination, more likely than not, whether he's going to be a presidential candidate in 2024, Tom.
You know, you made such a good point there,
That's
Vaughn.
gonna
Real
be
quickly,
interesting.
let you expand on it. He
That's
has
gonna be
grown
very, very
his
interesting.
base with these challenges to his candidacy, with the Colorado decision, with the Maine decision. The question is whether what's happening in the middle, what's happening with independents in this country as this campaign progresses.
Right. That is the issue here. And honestly, when you look at the polling between Iowa and New Hampshire, Tom, you see Nikki Haley performing much better in the state of New Hampshire,
I heard
because
Nikki
in New
Haley's a
Hampshire,
warlord.
they allow independent voters to go and take part
Is that true?
in the Republican primary process. Here in Iowa, you have to be a registered Republican, and Iowa polling shows him about a 30-point lead. And in New Hampshire, polling has
That's
Nikki
all
Haley
she
down
talks
anywhere
about
from
when
4
she gets
points
on them
to
polls.
10 points. So it's a much smaller deficit, because we see that independent voters, they're looking for somebody not named Donald Trump. They're looking for somebody not named Joe Biden. But right now, if the Republican electorate has their say, he's winning in polling in every single state. And so, you know, that's where you've seen the RFK Jr. trying to get on the ballot as an independent candidate. This group, No Labels, is trying to create a potential bipartisan presidential ticket to try to cater more toward the middle of the country, people that are dissatisfied with both Donald Trump and Joe Biden.
Yeah. Vaughn, you've got an interesting and a long.
The biggest name I heard is Vivek. Vivek is pretty much the next one coming up. I heard saying DeSantis is he's okay too, but I heard Vivek is really making some noise. So, and he seems to be level-headed. He seems to be more younger. He seems to be more energetic. He seems to be more knowledgeable about certain things. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in the upcoming years too, if he's gonna even run again or if he's gonna just do his thing right now. But I heard Vivek is making some noise.
Long night ahead of you. Thank you very much. Let's get back to Danny real quickly. You know, Danny, I've listened to conservative commentators on this who come down on both sides of this issue. Some say that they expect the Supreme Court will reaffirm the Colorado decision, and others say the Colorado decision doesn't have a chance in heck of being supported. What is your takeaway?
I think the takeaway is to look at this as playing the odds. So no matter what side you're on, you look at all the different, I guess you can call them opportunities, but you can look at switches that have to be aligned for Donald Trump to be kicked off the ballot. And for example, take a look at the Colorado Original District Court, the trial court. It concluded that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist after an evidentiary hearing. But even though he was an insurrectionist, it also concluded that he was not an officer within the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Therefore, he wasn't covered. Therefore, he would remain on the ballot. Then it goes to the Colorado Supreme Court. They're sharply divided 4-3. So
Let
that
me know
was
what
a
y'all
close
think.
call. But so
Biden
many things need to
or
line
Trump?
up for Donald Trump to remain off
Let me
the
know
ballot.
what y'all
The
think.
failure of any one of them and Donald Trump remains on the ballot. For example, we
Biden
talked
or
about whether
Trump?
or not the courts can even hear this issue, or
Yeah.
whether
My
it's
opinion,
really
Biden
committed
sucks.
to another branch,
So is
to an
Trump.
administrative branch. Maybe Maine got it right by doing it
I don't know who to vote
administratively.
for next.
So that's an issue
I
as
might
well.
not be
There
voting,
may be several other reasons why a court, the Supreme Court in
but
particular, can conclude that Donald Trump stays
I
on.
have to choose one.
Everything needs to line up perfectly for those who want to kick him off the ballot, for him to remain off the ballot. So if you're just placing a bet, the odds are going to be in favor of Donald Trump staying on the ballot. If for no other reason, then almost everything, all these issues have to line up perfectly for him to remain off the ballot. Any one of them failing, he remains on the ballot.
Danny, great expertise. Thank you very much. And Von Hilliard, thank you.
That was a good one. That was a good one. Honestly, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple months. I mean, it's been entertaining so far. It's been very entertaining. So I'm looking forward to see who's going to take off in the next couple months. If Vivek is even going to say anything that is going to, boost his engagement, boost his visibility. But right now, it's clearly a blowout. It's clearly a blowout. Trump is up big. Biden, he's the only guy that he's got to worry about on that side. But man, the Democrats need some help, man. The Democrats need some help, bro, because Biden's looking sad out there. Biden is looking sad. Kamala Harris is looking sad. We haven't even heard from her since she's been in office. I'll be honest with you. I haven't heard nothing about what Kamala Harris has been doing. But nonetheless, we'll see what happens. February 8th is a big day. And yeah,